Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Security Token Insiders interview series. My name is Kyle Sonlin. I'm the CEO of Security Token Market. And today I'm joined by Saum Noursalehi, from the CEO of tZERO. We're really excited to get into the conversation today. Thanks for joining us, Saum.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you as well. We certainly think everybody listening is familiar with tZERO and what you guys have been up to. But first off, let's just dig right into it and talk a little bit about. Let's talk about tZERO as a marketplace, ATS, broker dealer, and what some of your successes have been over the last 12 months.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a busy 12 months. There's a lot going on in the space. I think things are really starting to heat up with security tokens. And we're seeing that with the size and the quality of the deals that we're seeing. So the last 12 months, I'd say we launched our retail broker dealer, tZERO Markets, which took some regulatory work as well as getting all the consumer-facing trading interface for our investors. We signed recently a lot of partnership agreements, which we believe is going to serve as on-ramps for additional assets. So companies like Equivista, which does cap table management, Earn.re, Family Office Network, and we're already starting to see new tokens coming from these various sources, as well as a lot of the blockchain players like Vertalo, Securitize, TokenSoft, and a lot of these blockchain players in the space. Additionally, we signed a bunch of new private assets that we hope to onboard and trade. One was called the Liquid Mining Fund, Exodus, which is a crypto wallet, Tintin Capital, which is a fund, ROI Group, which is a lot of real estate projects that are looking for liquidity. So quite a few assets being signed, as well as a lot of growth in our trade volumes, where last year we grew trade volumes by 10x, and we're hoping to do another 10x growth this year, but we'll see where that lands.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting. And I think you brought up some fun points that we can dive into there a little bit. From a lot of the network that I've had the pleasure of speaking to and connecting with, that have had to deal with getting a lot of these different regulatory licenses, that does seem to be what the significant holdup has been in onboarding new assets and building the market here. Specifically, it seems like there's a big distinction being made between like traditional broker dealers and a digital broker dealer, or a traditional transfer agent and a digital transfer agent, or making these semantical changes that are really required. Have you found that that's been a significant holdup for you, or what's been where have been some of those issues coming from? Because I know that there are a lot of passionate people in the space excited for tZERO to list some more assets and bring some more products to market. Where has really been that holdup been so far?
Yeah, it's definitely been, I'm not a capital markets person. I'm a technologist, product development person, and definitely underestimated the amount of regulatory lift that was required to get, first of all, an ecosystem up and running, but also just to educate regulators and issuers really on the possibilities of this digital ecosystem. You can see that there has been progress, and just by the fact that you're mentioning digital broker dealer, these things were all took time to get regulators to understand it and be able to define a path for how you, for example, custody these assets. And so it has been a lot of regulatory lift. And if you were to ask me, it has developed slower than I would have liked. But we're now through, I think, a lot of that work. And so really now it's about growth and growing the business. So I think we've gotten through the toughest part of getting an ecosystem that's accepted by regulators. And so anyway, I think it should start going much faster. And I think we're at a tipping point where these digital securities are going to really take off.
It's also interesting to see how with the cryptocurrency space and the demand, even institutionally, but from a retail perspective, everyone wants to have more access and exposure into a lot of the crypto world, whether it's Bitcoin and Ethereum, or you get some of these DeFi opportunities and other things that funds and investment professionals are now looking to get more exposure to, might be also assisting in driving more of that adoption, and is just making, having people make more money. And as the markets grow and develop, that's been, I think, a key piece as well. We're no longer just banging our head at the wall trying to convince people of the future anymore.
No, it's definitely helping. Good point.
So, yeah. So you talked about some of the new issuers coming through the pipeline. Are you seeing that it's traditionally, analog issuers that are looking to get on the cutting edge of the blockchain technology, or is it some of these newer issuers that are more facing, new opportunities to raise money through unique vehicles? Which kind of side do you see more activity in right now?
I think the areas where it really solves a problem for the business, for example, in real estate, obviously real estate and particularly commercial and expensive real estate is very illiquid. And so solving that liquidity problem for firms like that, or funds where the capital is locked up for a decade, a lot of times.
Right.
And so this sort of de-risks the investment for investors and for the fund. So we're seeing traction in those areas. And then obviously the crypto players, being more progressive and understanding the space. So the crypto wallet Exodus that I mentioned, for example, they just did an offering and they want liquidity. They and their investors want liquidity. So it's sort of been a mix. I would say the areas where it's solving the greatest need, we're seeing traction, as well as, the crypto players who understand it.
So with that integration, I imagine that because they're a crypto wallet, will they be able to custody the tZERO or tZERO token, as well as other security tokens that are on tZERO? Will you have plans to allow for self-custody of a security?
Potentially. So they're going to use our licenses and our custody solution, and essentially plug into our APIs to be able to trade these. So you might have a portion of their app where it might say, powered by tZERO, where we provide all the custodial solution and the technology to manage the trading, and as well as the brokerage licenses to trade those assets. So that's what we're looking at. We do support self-custody, but you can't trade. You can move it into your private wallet and hold it, but you can't provide trading unless it's plugged into a broker-dealer and our ATS to trade it. So it's really about exposing our licenses and technology through APIs.
I think that's interesting. And because that's really one of the great value propositions of the blockchain-based assets and security tokens is this global interoperability, and potentially offering a much wider access of ownership and investment for investors around the world. And so I know that certainly the being in the US and operating under US securities laws does put some level of restriction on how you can operate. But what does that look like in terms of international access into the tZERO platform right now? And do you see that being something that expands, or rather potentially working or partnering with exchanges in different jurisdictions to allow for that liquidity flow internationally?
Yeah, we support something like 30 to 40 international locations through our broker-dealer. But additionally, we're talking to some exchanges, security token exchanges internationally, and looking to potentially partner with them to trade the same assets, where they could bring listings to the platform, we could bring listings, and it's really about pooling liquidity across international exchanges. So interoperability is definitely very important to us. We have our own token standard, but we're supporting other token standards as well. Most of them are ERC20 or Ethereum-based tokens, but we're also supporting other blockchains. So really, we do see this long-term as a global solution where anyone globally can participate and invest anywhere across the world, companies across the world, assets, tangible assets like real estate across the world. And And that's sort of the end state we're moving towards.
Right, right. Interesting. And with the platform that you've built, I know that there's certainly a very vapid, excited base that loves to support the tZERO asset as well. And so that's maybe an interesting point to pivot to that doesn't get quite as much coverage in the news and in the things that we tend to see in the public space. Can we talk about a little bit about the tZERO asset and the plans for that, right? Because from what I understand, it has a profit share component, and that's generated or that presumably will come from exchange fees of trading on the platform. How much of a focus is driving token holder value to the firm as much as building the platform and the equity value, which I guess could be slightly different in terms of the economic incentives?
Yeah, it's definitely very important to the company. It, like you mentioned, is a share of profits, gross profits, that 10% of gross profits that will get distributed to those token holders. That really assumes that we're profitable, which we should hopefully get to in the next, couple of years or so. And so those early investors are very important to us, and we want to take care of them. And the way we do that, then really where we're focused, there are structural things we've thought about adding or other benefits to the token, which we may still do and we're evaluating. But really the best way to reward those holders is to grow quickly and get to profitability. And so that's really where we've been focused. Part of why we're launching this new crypto app and merging it with security tokens, onboarding new assets. Really, those are the ways we grow profits. And remember, the digital side of our company, which is where we're focused, is very high margin. It's somewhere around 60% today, and I can see that growing, maybe to 80% margin or margins from that business. So it's very healthy margin. So it doesn't take a lot of growth for the business to start spinning out cash and rewarding token holders.
Interesting. That I know that there was it was very exciting to see the retail investor access for that as well, because I know that when security tokens were really first thrust into the mainstream, a lot of the initial pushback was due to this idea that only accredited investors could participate, which really shrunk down the size of the available market here and the addressable market. And as we've seen in public markets, it does seem like a lot of the retail sentiment is what drives the direction on a lot of these shares now. And so do you think that will be something you'll be able to leverage for additional issuers that list on the platform? Like, how viable is a Rule 144 or one of these things? How viable is that for the potential issuers you're working with to create more retail investment opportunities as opposed to just accredited?
Yeah, that's our whole purpose for doing this, is open up access to these asset classes that people haven't traditionally had access to, whether it's very high-end commercial real estate or participating in venture capital funds and things that normal retail doesn't have access to. So it is viable. We've proven it, and really we support all the different investor types, whether it's institutional, accredited, or retail. But really the goal is to get more retail and open up access to these assets, and it's definitely viable.
And you're accomplishing that as well. You're seeing a lot of volume through the crypto side of the trading app. Do you expect that that's going to continue to grow as you lift some caps and create more opportunity to invest through that medium?
Yeah, we're just now, maybe a week or two away from launching a new crypto app that we think is going to more than, it's hard to say, but I'm very optimistic on the growth numbers we'll see from that. And then the next step, once that launches, is to merge the security token world with that. And so that investor base plus the security token investor base will merge, which will further boost liquidity for both crypto and security tokens. So really, our goal is to have one platform primarily to invest in all digital assets. And we're evaluating NFTs as as a third asset, but really whether it's cryptocurrencies, NFTs, digital securities, or security tokens, all in one trading interface, whether it's the apps or on the web. So iOS, Android, or web, you could trade all those asset classes in one place.
And that's, I think, an interesting segue into the crypto side, and maybe just more specifically the blockchain side. I know that tZERO has been a big proponent of Ravencoin, as well as Tezos, as the St. Regis Hotel was tokenized through that blockchain. I'm not totally sure which blockchain the tZERO asset was issued through. Maybe Ethereum, if I remember correctly. You can certainly correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's correct.
What are your thoughts on these different blockchains? Do you see the security token industry being agnostic in this regard, or are you siding more with Ravencoin since there seems to be this relationship there? What's kind of what are your thoughts on that side of it?
Medici, our parent, was involved with Raven as a cryptocurrency. We also like it, like Tezos, because specifically it was designed around creating digital assets. And so we've been supporting some of the chains around that. But a lot of what's been prioritizing what chains we support has been issuer driven. So in the case of, for example, St. Regis Aspen, they were interested in Tezos as a chain, and so we integrated that. Our own security, as you mentioned, is Ethereum based. Algorand is also making a push into this digital asset world. So I think you'll see chains specialize, around maybe specific assets or areas, and so right now we're being very flexible. I do think at some point things may consolidate, but for now, we're kind of open to what the issuer wants. Ethereum, I would say, right now has probably got the lead, although their fees on gas are, high, and ETH 2.0, has promises to solve that. So we'll see how it plays out.
Interesting. And I like your thoughts there on being agnostic. I think is also the reality, because of the fact that with a security, really, you're still talking about those centralized mechanisms to manage the financial security. And then the blockchain could be used to automate some compliance or streamline some settlement. But the reality is you're still dealing with a financial security that could be reissued on different chains and could be handled that way, which is kind of interesting. But I think maybe one benefit that blockchains have is again, this smart contracts allowing for programmatic settlement and things like that. I know we've talked about before how there's still this kind of concern over using a blockchain-based ledger as your primary use of record for the settlement of a security. Is that still an issue, or are we able to kind of move past that now and use the blockchain as the primary record of the ledger?
I would say there's still some regulatory concern, but we're getting close. To me, they're getting more and more comfortable with it. To me, it's sort of like saying we're okay with, and we're not sure we trust MySQL database, but we're okay with Oracle. That's an implementation detail that the regulators shouldn't really worry about. I mean, they can do their diligence to make sure it's secure and all that, but we're really getting into which databases they're okay with. It's an implementation detail that the company should be liable. If the database blows up, then the company's liable. But it's really getting too much in the weeds on how you implemented your solution. And I think we're getting there, though, that soon the blockchain will take more and more of a role, and we can disintermediate a lot of these middlemen or market participants that can just be handled through technology, smart contracts, and books and records being all stored on the blockchain. So we're getting there. It's going to be incremental, though.
Which opens the door for all kinds of cool, DeFi level tools of collateralization and different things like that potentially one day in the future, which would be fascinating stuff for sure.
Exactly.
So finally, I've got one or two final questions. One, I'm not sure how much you can answer, but I was just interested because on the public call you invited me to join about a month ago, you discussed the fundraise for tZERO, and not only a potential fundraise, but maybe a SPAC was the word that was thrown around. Do you have any updates on that, or what does that mean for the tZERO token and for token holders and for investors? What do they need to know about that? How's the company doing from a health perspective? Where kind of are we in this, and is there optimism or is there concern?
No, the raise is moving forward. I know there was a headline, we're selling the business. That's not true. We're raising capital. Particularly, we're focused on getting strategic investors that can help the business grow. And so, that's moving forward. We're doing management meetings with various firms, and so we're feeling good about it. Now, what comes out of it or what type of deal? Most likely, well, I don't want to speculate, but there'll be a kind of a traditional investment or private placement. But there are these other possibilities, which are SPACs, and so there's whether we IPO kind of or go public through a SPAC, near term or longer term. There are these other possibilities, and we are talking to various different, sources of capital, whether they're strategics, traditional kind of financial firms, or SPACs. And so we'll have to see how it plays out, but the process is underway. So we're
interesting.
excited.
Great. Well, that's exciting. Happy to hear there's optimism there, and yeah, you certainly have to consider all of your options. And again, I think that'll be interesting to watch how that dynamic plays out between the tZERO token and how a public market version might look, or other faces. So very cool. And maybe we'll finally wrap it up. I want to hear about what you think the vision for the market here is going to be in the next 5 or 10 years. Don't give me any roses or anything like that. Let's talk, brass tacks. Do you see this market replacing traditional lines of credit or capital raised infrastructure? Do we see it's still taking a couple of years for the regulators to get around and to actually make this a viable solution? And where do you see tZERO fitting into the whole puzzle?
Yeah. I mean, I could see a world where essentially at various stages of a company or an asset, there's a liquidity solution that's based on a purely digital blockchain-based ecosystem. So anything of value can be traded, and ideally in a global solution. Now, that's going to take time. I would say it is in that 5 to 10 year window, but you'll see, I think, a world where anything of value can be traded and settled instantly versus what we have. I think public markets will be the last to be disrupted, which is, we're focused more on private, but you'll see, more and more digital assets. And sometimes people refer to digital assets as its own asset class. I don't see it that way. It's sort of like stocks were at one point traded as paper certificates and then went to electronic trading. And so I think if it's a security, it's a security. But eventually everything's going to go to an more automated digital world where settlement can happen instantly. But my guess would be that public markets are going to come later. It won't start with public markets.
Right.
It'll get
right. Fascinating stuff. And maybe we'll just close it out. We're talking 5 to 10 years. We'll do something fun for the final question. In 10 years, bigger market cap, Bitcoin or Ethereum?
That's a tough one. I'm actually pretty bullish on Ethereum just because to me, it's this decentralized virtual machine that has a much bigger purpose and can be, leveraged by developers and for all sorts of sectors. So I'm pretty bullish on Ethereum. I think Bitcoin could be around too, depending on how much development and improvements are made there, especially in the payments realm. There hasn't been a lot of progress so far, but my bet might be Ethereum actually.
Fascinating. So great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This series is is in partnership with 42 DAO and Red Block, who's going to be translating this around the world. So we're going to make sure that everybody is able to see it and access. Here's some of the stuff. I'm sure you'll be able to see some of the clips on Twitter and through our social medias as well. Really appreciate you coming on, Saum, and it's a pleasure to meet you face to face.
Great meeting you as well. Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye.